All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Nick, that just came to us. So, um, so as you guys know, as you know, this is our Staying Strong and Positive for ourselves and our family, our webinar. I'm super excited today because today we are sharing one parent's journey under the rainbow, busting down the closet doors as a parent with my friend Nick Clinton from Nick Clinton-Elliott from Missouri. I'm super excited to have him here. I met Nick is a friend of Be Strong Families by way of Parent Cafe Training Institute. Maybe about he is not only is he a trained cafe host, he is also a certified training partner with Be Strong Families. So he is certified to train our Parent Cafe Training Institute. And he is also a part of our National Parent Cafe Leadership Team. Yay! Which means he helps us to host cafes for people all across the country. I met Nick during a Parent Cafe Training Institute years ago when he used some fresh baked apple cinnamon muffins to win the cafe competition that we were in during the training. I don't know how that happened, but it did. And I was floored, and we have been friends ever since because, I mean, who doesn't want to be friends with somebody who can make fresh baked apple cinnamon muffins, okay, to win a contest? That wasn't even part of the requirements, but above and beyond. So I'm super excited to share Nick Clinton-Elliott with you guys today, and I am his host, Sarita Sashington. So I'm looking forward to a fantastic conversation today with Nick. Welcome, Nick.
Well, thank you so much for having me on here. It's been amazing to be a friend of Be Strong Families for all of these years and to have the privilege to be engaged with parent cafes on so many levels. I absolutely love that.
Thank you, Nick. All right, let's keep going, Andrew. So, these are our ways to engage. When you're ready to speak, please raise your hand and we'll unmute you. You will then need to unmute yourself to be heard. Feel free to type your comments in the group chat and make sure it's going to everyone and not just hosts and panelists. Otherwise, we'll be the only ones to see it. And then please be patient as we try to get to everyone. We will have Nick is going to share his story today, and then we're going to have Q&A at the end. So if you have some questions, write down some questions as we go through, and then if you'd like to be brought on to, to just verbally ask your question, or you can put it in the chat. But if you want to be verbally done, you'll have to raise your hand, right? And we'll bring you on with us. We love stuff like that. So please think about, questions that you might have for Nick after he shares. All right, keep moving. Thank you. You guys know we have these great agreements that we put in place for emotional safety, and we use them for our cafes, and we definitely use them for our webinars. So we're going to speak from our own experience. Your own experience, use I statements, and then so don't talk about other people's experience but your own. Golden rule: treat other people the way you want to be treated, right? I love this one because it wraps up all of our cafe agreements, like no judgment, because you can get that on Facebook. Uh, no giving advice, those kinds of things. You're just simply sharing your own experiences. And then full presence. Please be no multitasking. We know that you can do a whole lot of things, but we are so excited that Nick is joining us all the way from Missouri, and we don't want you to miss one part of his fantastic journey. So please don't multitasking. And if you need a minute, take a minute, come on back, and we'll be here waiting for you. I see you guys are already putting in the chat. You agree, fantastic. We can get some more I agrees in there. This would be fantastic. We just want to make sure that the space is safe. Um, Fantastic. I see them coming through. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Thanks so much, guys, for keeping this space safe. All right. Yay. Hey, Pam. Hey, Veronica. Hey, Tana. All right. Okay, okay. We can move. And then show your love for families. We'd like to invite you to donate to our annual campaign. Yay! As you can see, we're having this campaign that is kicked off, I think, this week or last week, early this. When did it kick off? Anyway, it's in full effect. If you love to show your family, love to our families, especially the LGBTQ community, we'd love for you to do that. You can do that by donating to our annual campaign, and uh, yeah. Lord, what's his name? Andrew, you can drop the link to that if people want to donate or to where they can find that on our website. All right. Thank you guys. And we can keep going. And now I'm going to turn this over to Nick, who's going to get us started with today's conversation. It's all you, Nick.
Well, thank you so much, Sarita. It's so good to be able to be here and to have all of you listening today. First of all, I'm going to say I am neurodivergent. So if I take lots of rabbit trails and go all over the place, just expect that. That's how I am. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat or to raise your hand, and I would be glad to address those as we go, because I know I would forget if we waited till the end. So feel free to interrupt, or if you want to save it till the end, that's fine as well. So I am Nick Clinton-Elliott. First of all, I would say that I am a dad, and if you could hit the next slide, Andrew. We jokingly refer to our family as the Gaydy Bunch instead of the Brady Bunch, because my husband Stephen and I married. He had 2 children and I had 4 children from previous marriages. So when we married, they were suddenly 6 kids together. So that was definitely very interesting. So that's why we have the Gaydy Bunch. And if you go to the next slide, these are pictures of myself and my husband and the 6 children. So even in having 6 children as a gay family, we're not typical, because we also have 2 queer children. Our oldest child, with the pumpkin on her head, is Galen, and Galen is a senior at MCAD in Michigan studying art, and she identifies as a queer artist, and we're so proud of her. And then just below her with the spiky reddish hair is Skylar. Skylar is our non-binary child, and so I am still working on adjusting to they, them pronouns and the new name. So if I mess that up, know that we're working through that as we go along. And then in the other picture, the 4 kids that are biologically mine are Lily, Asher, JC, and Rowan. And they are in middle school, grade school, and preschool. So we have a wild and crazy bunch, but we have lots of love to share. So who I am primarily, I'm a dad, but also through work, I am the executive director of the GLO Center in Springfield, Missouri. We are the oldest LGBTQ drop-in center in the state of Missouri. So that's pretty cool. We're also the home to the Ozarks Inclusion Project, which is this really awesome website and business listing that people can go to, and they can check out businesses and nonprofits in the area that cater to the LGBTQ community. And now we are working in the process of expanding that to include all different ways that we can be inclusive. So we look forward to what the future has for that. Okay, so now that I've kind of talked in a nutshell about who I am now, I'm going to go way back in my story. And we're going to start at the very beginning. I'm sure a lot of you have some significant trauma histories, and I am definitely one that has a trauma history as well. I was sexually abused from a very young age. I don't even remember how young I was when it started, but I was at least 5 or younger. Um, and whenever I was about 6 years old, my family house burned. So there was lots of really early trauma in my life. And I think that um, that kind of set me up in a different position. You know, our family didn't have any homeowners insurance. So when our home burned, we were completely devastated, and it took us a long time as a family to recover from that. So that was definitely some very difficult trauma early on. Um, my family was a pretty good family. We were pretty close. My sister, myself, and my parents. So my parents were very young when they had us. They were, I think, 19 and 20 when my sister was born, and then a year later I was born. So young family, no money, no house. You could imagine that that would be a very difficult place for my family. But we had very strong faith as a family, and that is a protective factor, not one of Be Strong Family's protective factors, but it is a protective factor to have that faith, and that was very helpful for us. Both of my grandfathers were ministers. We were very engaged in very conservative Christianity, which is wonderful, but it set a difficult foundation for me as a gay individual. And you know, I was taught from very early on that it was wrong to be gay, and that that can be changed. And so here I was, you know, struggling with being sexually abused by older male cousins. Um, and then I thought there was something wrong with me from the very beginning because of that sexual abuse. So, and then there's, you know, if it's wrong and yet it's happening to me even though I can't really help it, then there must be something wrong with me. And that became a very core part of my identity, is that I'm just broken and something's wrong with me. And it took a lot of therapy to get through that, and it's something I still definitely struggle with. Um, but I think I kind of first realized I think I might be gay when I was in high school. I'm such a super nerd that I would volunteer the summers in my high school to help run computer networking cable and do stuff like that for the school. So I was running computer networking cable above the ceiling, and this guy walks in with his parents, and he was a wrestler from Nebraska, corn fed. I about fell off my ladder. I was like, he is a very handsome man. And then I was like, I think I might be gay. But I, you know, with my upbringing, I really, really struggled with that. And I kept trying to
Mm-hmm.
dismiss it and say, you know, maybe this is just something that I'm imagining, or something that I can pray away if I just have more faith. So that was my senior year of high school. I got into college, and it was like a whole different world. I made a lot of new friends. 9/11 happened my freshman year of college. It was a very weird time. But I came out to some of my friends and told them, hey, I think I might be gay. And then, you know, I began to learn more about what that means. And I was kind of enjoying, you know, discovering that part of my identity. Um, but when I told my family, they were not supportive, and they were not happy at all. They kind of distanced themselves from me, and that was a really, really dark time in my life. Um, I was serving in AmeriCorps, which is like a domestic Peace Corps. So I did 2 terms of AmeriCorps in Missouri. And then after those 2 terms were up, I was kind of lost. I had flunked out of college. I wasn't sure where life was going. I was really depressed. And I think a lot of that was because I couldn't reconcile what I felt were like 2 different sides of myself. So I signed up for a 3rd term of AmeriCorps, and I ended up in the National Civilian Community Corps on the East Coast. So for the first time in my life, I was away from my family. I was in Maryland, Massachusetts, and Delaware, doing different projects in that area. And I was gone for about 8 months, and I missed my family so much. That was very difficult. I was very close to my family. Um, and so I kind of had a breakdown, and I decided to come back home. Um, and I thought, well, I can avoid this whole gay thing altogether if I'm just celibate and if I pour all my attention into faith. So I actually ended up enrolling in Bible college, to go back to school and to become a missionary. And that was my goal. And then in my English class, I met a young lady and we became really good friends. Fast forward about a year later, we actually started dating, and eventually we got married. And it was a pretty amazing relationship, especially in the beginning. Thankfully, before we ever went on a single date, I said, "Hey, so I got something in my closet here, if you will. I think I'm gay, but I also don't want to be, so I'm trying to fix that." So we did some therapy together, some Bible-based therapy, and I went through some I forgot the term. I just went completely blank. Conversion therapy, or reparative therapy, as some call it, to try to change my sexual identity.
Shut up.
And just as a side note, science has shown that that is not healthy and that it does not do any good.
Mhm.
So anyway, we got married, we finished college, and found out we were expecting. And that's where Lily came into the picture. And the moment I held our daughter for the first time, it was just like this mind-blowing experience. I can't even explain it. It was like I was holding this tiny baby, and I knew my life would never be the same. It was just that I would do anything in that moment to protect this baby. And it's just, being a dad is the greatest thing in the world. I love it more than life itself. We went on to have 3 other children, as you saw earlier in the picture. And we were married 13 years total. I had a breakdown about 8 years into our marriage and attempted suicide because I was extremely depressed from trying to live 2 different lives, knowing that I was gay and yet trying to live as a happily married straight man. It's difficult.
Yeah.
And I was, serving in my church the whole time. And I ended up writing a letter to my now ex-wife, and I said, "I can't do this anymore. I don't think that it's a sin to be gay. I'm not sure what that means for us, but I know I have to be my authentic self. I have to embrace all of who I am." And much like my family, she did not take that well. She ended up kicking me out of the house immediately. And so then I was homeless, trying to figure out how I could be a dad and not lose my children. In her hurt, my ex-wife said that she wouldn't let me see the kids, that she wouldn't let them be a part of my life. And, I believed that, and it terrified me. And of course, the courts don't look favorably on a dad who's homeless, and a stay-at-home mom looks like a much better option as a parent at that point. And she's a great mom. Don't get me wrong. She really is. We've worked things out and co-parent quite well most of the time. But those early years were, after the divorce, well, after the separation, were very, very difficult. And my depression definitely came back very strong. And once again, I got into therapy, but this time I went with just conventional therapy instead of faith-based. And for me, that was the best thing besides being a father that ever happened to me. Not saying anything bad about faith or faith-based therapy, but it was not right for me. I believe that, like I said earlier, faith is a protective factor, but faith can also be toxic if it is against part of who you are, if that makes sense. So I really I ended up living with a friend that was much older, and the kids couldn't really come over there, and so I would have to go to my old house to visit the kids, and I would only get to see them for a few hours a week, and I was working 3 jobs to try to support the kids and their mom, since she was a stay-at-home mom mostly. I mean, she did a couple side jobs, but yeah, it was very difficult. And around that time, I met this guy. Um, and I had no intentions of this, but only after 3 weeks after separating from my wife, I met the man that is now my husband. And he is also a dad, as I mentioned earlier. So, like, finding another gay man in rural Missouri who faith is important to him, and so is the family. It was like I won the lottery. So we fell in love rather quickly. We got matching tattoos on our second date. So I'm not encouraging anyone to do that. That is way too fast for most people.
Wow.
But it worked for us. And that
Mhm.
was 3 years ago. And we've been married 3 years ago tomorrow, actually.
Mm.
So we moved quickly, but it worked for us. And it's been a lot of adjustment for the kids. You know, here, the older two, they were already in college. So it wasn't a big deal to them. But the younger four, here they go from at their mom's house, they hear that it's wrong to be gay. And then at our house, it's like, oh, we have gay dads, you know, like that. Now here they are struggling to try to reconcile this, and it breaks my heart. I think that's probably one of the most difficult things about parenting in our situation is just the difference in parenting styles and belief systems between the two households and how that impacts the kids. So so we are still actively involved in our church, but we go to an affirming church. And so the kids get to see other people who are, questioning their faith. And we actually just were able to lead a Bible study at our church that was called Deconstructing Your Faith. And that was pretty incredible to systematically look at our faith and go, we believe this, we don't believe this, this is why. And, to be able to teach as a gay man in a church was a pretty awesome opportunity for me. And that I was approached and asked to do it. Where compared to my old church, when I came out, I was asked to not be around children because apparently some people believe that all gay men are pedophiles. At least that's what I was told. So yeah, that can be quite the devastating comment. Now I'm trying to think of where I was with all that.
You're sharing your journey about like being asked to teach.
Oh yeah. So it's so hard to not tell the kids, listen, I think your mom is wrong. This is what the Bible says, and this is, doesn't apply to us, and this does. It's so hard to show her respect and to not go against what she teaches them. But I, through huge amounts of of respect, and prayer. I'm able to pull back and to let what she teaches at her house be what she teaches, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't argue with that. I don't tell the kids she's wrong, but if they have questions, answer them honestly and openly. Um, which was really fun a couple days ago when my 9-year-old goes, "Dad, what's puberty?" But that's a whole nother conversation. But at my house, that's the rule. We're going to be open and honest and
Mm-hmm.
talk about our feelings. We're huge fans of Brene Brown. I'm sure there's some other people in here that
Mm-hmm.
love them
Mm-hmm.
some Brene Brown, but authenticity, it's crucial for our family, to be open, transparent, and honest in all things, even whenever it's complicated and it's not fun to talk about.
Yeah.
It's important. So with our family, communication is so incredibly important, and it's what kind of keeps the pieces going together. Oh, thank you, Victoria. I see your comment there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so another thing that has been a major struggle in our family. Um, my parents, as I mentioned earlier, don't really accept us. I wouldn't say that they disowned us, but they've told me that my husband is not allowed in their house. And so I choose not to go to their house because I want to be in a safe space. And that isn't safe for me.
Mm-hmm.
So my ex-wife takes the kids to my parents' house, and they spend time. My parents went to their wedding a couple months ago. That was an interesting choice. Uh, but I just this last Sunday we were sitting in church and they were talking about All Saints Day and mourning the people that you lost. And I realized I mourned the loss of my mom almost as though she had passed away, because she is so bitter towards me and my choices in life and me choosing to be authentically who I am. Um, so I don't know, that was somehow healing for me to realize, that when she's ready to approach me, she can, and I will be open to that. But for my sake, I have to just move on. And family is what you make it. So, I have lots of amazing people in my life who are part of my family now. I wasn't born as part of their family, but here we are. Um, so I think that's one of the biggest things to learn as a gay parent, is family and tradition are so huge. Um, but you have to learn sometimes to make your own family and your own tradition. And that's true in traditional marriages as well. Um, but here we are making our own traditions. And here at the GLO Center, where I'm the director, we are planning our Thanksgiving meal for families such as ours who don't have the family that they can go to, just to show that we're open and we love everyone. So I guess I'm ready for some questions and answer time.
Well, I just look, um, as I'm listening to your story, I have so many things that I'm reflective of as a also, growing up Christian. I have a lot of things that I'm reflective of. I do want to say that I was just really grateful that you even shared about when you said you're trying to adjust to the pronouns of they and them. I always feel so judged when I can't get it or I mess up. I always feel like I sometimes feel like, and probably because of Facebook, maybe I always feel like I'm gonna get pounced on, like, somebody's really like, no, it's not, get it right. And so to hear you as a gay man say, I'm struggling with those. I'm like, oh, good. Okay. It's not just me. I always feel like I'm going to, I'm old school. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
something that I that I'm, always learning, sometimes mess up, sometimes, I try to stay safe and stick with the
Absolutely.
name
It can be
so that
difficult.
I'm,
Just
yeah.
just 2 years ago, I didn't know anyone that identified as non-binary, and now I know dozens, and I think that's fantastic that they have found who they are. But absolutely, I am going to make mistakes, and I feel guilty about it. But it's like Sarita and I were talking before this. Sometimes we make mistakes, and we just use that as an opportunity to say, everybody makes mistakes. Now let's move on and improve.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
being a stepdad is difficult, but then being a stepdad to a non-binary person, I
Mhm.
adore them so much. But it's an adjustment, and I
Mhm.
heard someone very dear to Sarita and myself describe it as a loss with a trans child. They described, you know, their child, they're kind of mourning the loss of the child that they thought that they were going to have, because now it's different. And that's not wrong, but it is kind of difficult to understand. And I've talked to other parents who are in similar situations, and we all kind of are able to connect on that. Just how different it is to be on the parent side of it, because you're going to make mistakes. It happens, but just loads of grace for everybody, right?
Hello, that's like my favorite word, Nick, is like grace in every situation for everybody. There's grace, and I personally don't feel like there's enough of that going around. And more so, especially from those that identify as believers. Not enough grace going around. So we do have a question. Brenda Marshall said, "Are you able to have a relationship with your husband's family?"
So, um, my husband's family, he's one of 6 kids, so he has a pretty big family. But unfortunately, his mom and dad have both passed, so we're not able to be involved with his mom and his dad. And 4 of his siblings are kind of toxic to our beliefs. So we have a relationship with 2 of his sisters, and that's pretty nice. But for the most part, I say we have our strange little herd. That's the 6 kids, and actually my husband's ex-wife. It's kind of strange, but she's one of my best friends. We get along so well. We have all of our holidays together. She's part of the family. So I guess you just find what works. In that Bible
Yeah.
study I was talking about doing at our church, you find where there's life and nourish life and let it grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we were talking about, and
Yeah.
that's so true in my life as well.
So I guess my question is, how as you, as both Christian and gay, how do you connect that? How do you make those two work in your, how do you make that work? And then we have another question right after.
Absolutely. Well, I could give a whole sermon on this.
The
But I
brief
think
one.
I think it kind of boils down to you know Jesus's words. He said that the 2 greatest commandments were to love our God, our Lord, with all our heart, all our soul, and all our mind. And then the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And then Jesus said, all of the law and the prophets rest on those 2. So you boil that down, Jesus says the most important thing is love, and nothing else really matters.
I agree. I think I agree with you on the grace part. Because I feel like as a parent, um, I feel like as a parent, I can understand the loss piece, and I can understand, I can understand even the struggle with your faith, um, and just how to navigate that when your child comes to you and shares that. But also, I feel like the love thing has to be first and foremost. Like there has to be that love piece. Um, I have a niece who identifies as he, him, right? Niece identifies as a guy, and I remember our family just really, you know, because we're Christian, right? Then being raised in that way, and then you had some over here like and you had the others like like no, and then like me sort of being in the middle, like okay, but what would Jesus do? You know what I mean? Like, what would Jesus do? Like, he would just love her. Like, why can't we just love her? And,
Exactly.
and just like we may not understand all of the ins and outs, but why can't we just love her? So we have Stephanie saying, as a parent myself, what advice do you have for how parents can make home a safe place?
That is an excellent question, Stephanie. Um, I always feel that getting your kids to communicate it's a challenge. But I think laying the groundwork as early as possible that you can come to me and ask me anything and we will have a conversation about it. You have to try to keep it age appropriate, and that's sometimes a challenge too, but it's kind of exploring what's right in your family and having important conversations. Usually, I think kids are able to handle a lot tougher conversations than what we give them credit for. Um, so keep it real, keep it open. I like teachable moments myself. Whenever, like, for example, this one's kind of about race, but there was a little boy in my daughter's class whenever she was in first grade, and he was from Ethiopia and very dark skinned. And my daughter comes home and says, "Hey, this little boy said I call him dark chocolate. What do you think I call him?" And I'm like, "Well, have you tried asking his name?" And that's kind of how I view it with that, is that just let them question and don't ever shame them for asking questions, but just let them ask away.
You know
And
what?
when something comes up naturally, use that as an opportunity to talk about it instead of dismissing it and waiting till later. Sorry,
And I
sir.
also just no, no, no. I was gonna agree with you, but I also think, and in addition to that, I think because she also said like she wanted to make her place safe, and when I think about safety, my niece, one of the things that she shared with us was like in talking with her, what I learned was that whatever my ideas are, whatever my beliefs are, I don't know what people talk about in their homes, right? However, what you talk about in your home is really important, I think, to creating a safe space for your children because there's something that talks about what's in the heart comes out of the mouth, and oftentimes my family would be guilty of sometimes if we see something on TV that's, gay and lesbian, or we see something that's trans, or having conversations that are not, they're not positive conversations, they're negative, or making little comments about those things, or the, you know, making negative comments about those things. If a person is struggling, you may not know if your child is struggling in the area with their identity or trying to find themselves. And then if those conversations, those little, slights come out of your mouth,
Microaggressions.
negative microaggressions, exactly. Right. That's still something I'm trying to learn too, Nick, the microaggressions. If those things are coming out of your mouth and they're sitting in the place where they hear that, then that doesn't cause them to be emotionally safe. So then if they are struggling, if they hear that that's your viewpoint and that's how you feel about those people in those situations, then they're not going to want to come and talk to you. They're going to think that this my mom, my dad, my family is not a safe space because I hear the way they talk about other people who are struggling with the very same thing. And if I'm struggling with it, how are they going to look at me? So I'm not going to feel like I want to come and share that, right? Just from the little microaggressions that happen often in our homes that maybe we don't pay attention to, right? We're just saying it because that's what we grew up with, or that's what we're used to, or, whatever, or we don't agree with it. But in not agreeing, you don't have to agree with it to not be toxic and to not be negative. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like in creating that emotional safety in addition to like communicating. But that was one of the things that I learned, which was huge with my niece because of those conversations or those comments. That's what she was taking away. Like, my family doesn't love me. They don't accept me or they won't accept me. They don't support me. So I learned very early, like, you just need to be careful with the things you're saying, what you're saying, how you're saying them, because you're thinking that it's just you and this is how I feel, but you're verbalizing it and it's coming out of your mouth and they're sitting and catching this. And when stuff happens, they won't feel safe to share, if that makes sense. So,
Does. Another thing I would like to tag on to that
mhm.
is I found that children do better with conversations whenever don't have to make eye contact. So in the
Mm-hmm.
car,
Yes, yes,
the
that's great
car
for
in
picking her
car
up.
line, always a great place to talk. One that
Mm-hmm.
I love is sneaking and sitting down beside my son when he's playing his PlayStation. He'll have conversation, and he doesn't even realize he's having
Yes.
conversation because he's engaged with his game. But
Yeah.
he'll then like sometimes even pause it and be like, "Oh wow, we're talking about this."
Mhm.
And
That's a
so
good one, Nick. That's a good one. So
sometimes you have to
someone
be
said,
sneaky.
that's be strategic. I wouldn't even call it being sneaky. I'll just be strategic. You know what I mean? Like I used to have conversations like that, turning the radio down when my kids got in the car. So that so I can hear what they're talking about and so I can say that I'm available to them. So if they want to talk, this is the time because mom's not looking at them. I'm driving. I'm just having great conversations. You know what I mean? Not digging. So we got a question. What advice would you give to someone who's going through a similar experience as you? I'm a gender fluid / queer individual whose family Latino culture is deeply rooted in Catholicism, and LGBTQ individuals are frowned upon due to them not being within the norms of masculinity and femininity. What advice would you give?
Whew. That it's tough, to be honest. I think it's important to make sure you make yourself a priority. Like in the parent cafes, you have to take care of yourself to be able to take care of anyone else. And I think that's a very important thing to remember is you have to be authentic with who you are, um, and your sexual identity and your gender identity as a parent. I know it's confusing and it's hard, but explore that as much as you can. Learn about yourself. The family piece, unfortunately, you can't change what other people think, but you can change how you respond to that. So, and if it's a toxic situation, then you have to remove yourself from it most of the time. So, I wish there was an easy answer, but there's really
No
not. Be
easy answers.
yourself and have lots of grace
To grace for yourself and for others.
and for
For
others.
others. What Andrew said, what resources would you recommend to LGB, to the queer community and Christians who want to grow stronger within their faith?
Yeah. So one of my favorite books about that took me a second to remember. Unclobber, I believe it's called Unclobber. It's a book that talks about, I think there are 6 main passages that talk about homosexuality in the Bible, and it breaks it down verse by verse and talks about the history behind that and what the original language was referring to. So even Jesus says that the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah was lack of hospitality. If you look at the roots of the words there, he didn't say it was homosexuality, but lack of hospitality, because people weren't invited into their homes. They were made to stay in the town square. So there, I could go on and on about all of the different ones. But basically, those words don't interpret the same in modern language as what they were originally interpreted as. In fact, there's a movie coming out. I want to say it's like 1947 but it talks about how the word homosexual was first used in the Bible in 1947, and it wasn't used prior to that. And kind of how all of the major translations after that time began to adopt it. Where honestly, the word was more like pedophile would have been a better translation of that word, because it referred to a relationship with an older man and a young child. So there's lots of resources out there. Some are really great, some not so much. If you want, I didn't think about it ahead of time, but I could make a resource list and send that to you if you want. Sorry to.
Yeah, that'd be great. And we can make it available for people. Thank you, Nick. Victoria says she worked with a delightful young man who came out to his parents as being gay. The parents basically told him he could be gay as long as he didn't wear pink and act gay around his younger brothers and family. This bright young man ended up running away and staying with people in Chicago that were not safe. What advice do you have for kids who experience this?
Oh man. Yeah, I think that goes back to you saying to try to be a safe space. If they're, telling their child that it's okay to be gay but not to act gay, that's basically just telling them that they can't fully embrace part of themselves. So that's a real challenge. And youth, LGBTQ youth, being out in the community, like homeless, is a very bad problem in my area. In Springfield, Missouri, we have two of the largest, most conservative evangelical groups are right here in our city. So that's one reason I love doing what I do, is to be there for them. But just regular youth, if they're on the street for 48 hours, statistics say they've been propositioned for either sexual favors or to be involved in drug trafficking. And LGBTQ youth are at a higher risk than just your average youth. So it breaks my heart, but it's a really dangerous world for youth, especially the LGBTQ youth, whenever they are forced to leave their home. Did I answer that question? I've kind of got on a
I
rabbit
think
trail and
you
forgot where I
did.
was.
What advice do you have for kids who experience that? Like, should they stay home? Should they look for resources in the area? Because this young man ran away. So, what is better? Is it better to stay home and look for some resources in the area? Do you know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
like, I don't know. It can't be better to run away and be on the streets, can it?
it
I don't
depends
know.
on the conditions of the home.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I
Like,
would say the best advice for that, there is a wonderful network called Centerlink, and they are kind of a network of the LGBTQ community centers all across the country, actually even internationally. So the GLO Center where I work is a part of that network. So if you look on their website, they can break it down by location of the community centers in your area that are LGBTQ friendly. So they're great local resources. I would say that would probably be a great place to start, would be to find your local LGBTQ community center, and then ask them what resources there are in your area.
mhm. Thank you for those great questions. Thank you so much. Any other? We have like a few minutes, and so if you have any other questions or thoughts, or you want to come on and ask a question, please feel free to do that. We welcome this because this is we welcome those questions and comments and insights because this helps us all grow together, right? Uh, because that's what these are good for. I think that's why I love these webinars because and people sharing their stories because there's so much to learn and there's so much to grow. Nick had to clear up microaggressions for. I'm like, what do they call those? I'm still learning that, right? I'm still like we didn't talk about microaggressions growing up. I don't even think about that. And all of a sudden I'm learning about them like, oh, okay. So yeah, be careful of microaggressions.
And that's hard because you have to recognize that you have them, which most of us don't. So
I'll
something
recognize, yeah.
a resource for that I would say would be like the Harvard implicit bias studies. They have a ton of different kind of quizzes that you can take to measure your implicit biases. So if you chances are you will be biased in some way or another against a specific group of people, and
Mhm.
that's not intrinsically wrong, but how you act on that bias may
Yeah.
be. So it's good to know your biases, so that you can respond appropriately to those.
No judgment, Nick. No judgment.
I'm not sure of that
No
plural.
judgment. Look, no
This is
judgment.
hard.
Andrew is on top of his game. I love that he's dropping links in the chat for people
Oh my
to
gosh.
go
Look
to.
at that.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. And I'm definitely going to check out the implicit hearted one because I'm pretty sure I have some biases or that I need to work on. So you're welcome, Colette. Thank you so much for being with us today. If you'd like to get in touch with Nick and ask him more questions about his journey or about the work that he does at the GLO Center, here's his information on the screen. Andrew sharing with us.
Well, thank you all
Take
so
a
much
screenshot of that. I'm
for
sorry, go
checking
ahead.
in. Oh, I was just thanking everyone for being here today. And Sarita, it's always great to see you and to be able to converse with you. And Andrew, thank you so much for all of your amazing tech savvy stuff that you did that I won't even understand, but thank you for it.
I'm very glad to help. I very much enjoyed this webinar.
Same here. So Andrew has put the poll up to please take a moment and do the poll for us. And you know how we do things in the webinar. We want you to amplify something positive. And Nick's suggestion for us today was that we amplify pride. And so please take a moment to do that today. If you enjoyed this webinar, if you enjoy hearing from Nick and his journey, please feel free to amplify pride today. All right. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed this. Thank you so much. Don't forget, just another reminder that we are showing your love. We're doing our annual campaign, so show your love for um, LGBTQIA. Show your love for families in the queer community, okay? Thank you. By donating to our annual campaign. Um, we appreciate you guys showing up with us Mondays and Wednesdays every day for like a year and a half. And then we just recently moved to Mondays and Wednesdays, and we appreciate you guys being with us and all that you bring to this webinar. And so, want to support Be Strong Families, want to support those families, then donate. Okay. Next, got a lot of people saying thank you, Nick. And then be sure to join us tomorrow, right? Is that tomorrow?
Yes.
Martes is Wednesday, no, Tuesday. Thanks for trying to trip me up, Andrew. All right, November 9th, join us in our Spanish webinars. And then Wednesday on the 10th, we'll be here. Parents Journey, Parenting My Teen Who Identifies as Trans with Christine. And then, of course, Thursday, we have another Spanish webinar. And then Friday, we have our Taste of Cafe. Don't miss that. I hope you guys are enjoying our Taste of Cafe. How many of you guys, I probably should do a show of hands or something if you've been there. Um, if you've been to a Taste of Cafe and if you've been enjoying them. So, yay, Nick. You probably help host. So, yeah, if you'd like to join us for a Taste of Cafes, we'd love to see you there Friday. Those are always hosted by the National Parent Cafe Leadership Team at Be Strong Families. So, thank you. Next, don't forget to follow us on YouTube. Yay, our YouTube subscribers are growing. If you thought this was helpful, do me a favor and just share the link with someone you love. I think Nick sharing his journey with us was powerful and effective, and I think it'll be useful and helpful for a lot of families, as will this one on Wednesday. So share, share, share. Okay, and Andrew has dropped it into the link. Is that it, Andrew? If that's it, Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you. Thank you, Nick Clinton-Elliott, all the way from Springfield, Missouri. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you and all that you share with us today. It gave me a lot to reflect on as both a parent and a Christian, and it was helpful. So thank you, Nick.
Glad. Well, much love.
Received. All right, guys, thanks for being with us today. We enjoyed you. Have a great